Marcus Chen winced as the needle pierced his arm. The alien nurse's three-fingered hand was surprisingly gentle, but something felt wrong. The injection site burned more than usual, and the liquid going into his bloodstream felt thick, almost viscous. "There we go, human," the Zephyrian nurse said in her melodic voice. Her crystalline blue skin shimmered under the medical bay's harsh lights. "Standard immunity booster for the mining operation on Kepler 442b. But as she withdrew the needle, Marcus caught something in her large dark eyes. Fear. Pure, undiluted terror that she was trying desperately to hide behind her professional mask. The nurse glanced around the sterile white room, her head tentacles twitching nervously. The other patients had already left and they were alone. She moved to the door and engaged the privacy lock with a soft hiss. "Listen to me very carefully," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "That was not an immunity booster." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "What do you mean?" The nurse's name tag read 07, and her hands were shaking as she pulled up his medical file on her tablet. "I was ordered to give you compound XK9. It's designed to suppress human neural activity. To make you compliant." Compliant for what? Marcus struggled to keep his voice calm, but panic was rising in his chest. "The mining operation isn't what they told you. Kepler 442b has something on it. Something the Galactic Council doesn't want humans to find." 07's tentacles curled around her head in what Marcus had learned was a sign of extreme distress among her species. The burning sensation in his arm was spreading now, creeping up toward his shoulder. "How long do I have?" "The compound takes 72 hours to fully integrate into human brain chemistry." "After that," she trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "After that, what?" Marcus grabbed her arm, surprised by how cold her skin felt. "After that, you'll be just another worker drone. No independent thought, no curiosity, no drive to explore or question. Everything that makes humans human will be suppressed." Marcus's mind raced. He had signed up for this mission because Earth needed the rare minerals found on distant worlds. The pay was incredible, enough to support his family for generations. But now he was learning it was all a lie. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "You could lose everything." 07's large eyes met his, and he saw something he hadn't expected. "Respect. Because I've studied your species for 20 years. I've watched humans accomplish impossible things through sheer determination and refusing to accept limitations. The galaxy needs that spirit. Without it, we'll all become slaves to the Council's vision of order." The medical bay's comm system crackled to life. "Nurse 07, report to Station Command immediately." Both of them froze. The nurse's skin went from blue to a pale gray, and Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. "They know," she whispered. "Someone must have been monitoring. Is there an antidote?" Marcus asked urgently. "Not here, but there might be something on the research station orbiting Kepler 442b. Dr. Elena Vasquez was working on neural enhancement compounds before she disappeared 6 months ago." "Disappeared?" "Officially, she transferred to another project. Unofficially," 07 shook her head. "No one transfers away from a level 9 clearance position." The door chimed, and an authoritative voice called out, "Nurse, open this door immediately." 07 moved quickly to her supply cabinet and pulled out a small metallic device about the size of a coin. "This is a neural stabilizer. It won't stop the compound completely, but it might slow its effects. Hide it somewhere on your body and activate it when you feel your thoughts becoming foggy." Marcus pocketed the device just as the door burst open. 3 Zephyrian security officers entered, their uniforms marking them as Council enforcers. Behind them walked a tall, imposing figure that made Marcus's blood run cold. Commander Vex 9, the station's overseer, stood nearly 8 feet tall with jet-black skin and silver markings that indicated his high rank in the Galactic Council hierarchy. His forearms moved independently as he surveyed the scene, and his segmented eyes fixed on Marcus with predatory interest. "Mr. Chen," the commander said in perfect English, his voice carrying an undertone that suggested vast intelligence and even vaster cruelty. "I trust your medical examination went smoothly?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. Commander Vex 9's gaze shifted to 07, who had gone completely still. "Nurse, you seem distressed. Is there something you need to report?" "No, Commander. The human received his standard injections and is cleared for mining duty." The commander studied both of them for a long moment, his segmented eyes catching light like fractured mirrors. Marcus could feel sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the medical bay. "Excellent," Vex 9 finally said. "Mr. Chen, you'll be departing for Kepler 442b in 6 hours. I suggest you use that time to rest. The work ahead of you will be extensive." As the security officers escorted Marcus out, he caught one last glimpse of Zyra 7. She was staring at her hands, and he realized she was probably signing her own death warrant by helping him. But as they walked down the corridor toward his quarters, Marcus felt something he hadn't expected: determination. The compound in his bloodstream might be designed to suppress human will, but right now, that will was burning brighter than ever. He had 72 hours to figure out what the Galactic Council was really doing on Kepler 442b, find Dr. Vasquez or her research, and stop whatever conspiracy was unfolding. And if Zyra 7 was right about humans refusing to accept limitations, then the Council was about to learn why Earth had produced explorers, rebels, and survivors who had spread across the galaxy despite every obstacle thrown in their path. The game was on, and Marcus Chen had no intention of becoming anyone's drone. The transport ship to Kepler 442b was a massive vessel called the Harmony, designed to carry 300 miners and their equipment. Marcus sat in his assigned seat, watching the stars streak past through the viewport as they entered hyperspace. The neural stabilizer Zyra 7 had given him was hidden inside his boot, its slight weight a constant reminder of his ticking clock. Around him, other human miners chatted excitedly about the mission ahead. Most were from Earth's struggling colonies, desperate for the promised wages. Marcus studied their faces, wondering how many had received the same injection he had, and how many were already starting to feel its effects. "First time on a deep mining op?" asked the woman sitting next to him. She was in her 40s with calloused hands and intelligent brown eyes. Her name tag read Sarah Mitchell. "Yeah," Marcus replied, keeping his voice casual. "You? Third time. Though something feels different about this one." Sarah lowered her voice. "The security presence is way higher than usual, and they've got us in individual sleeping pods instead of the normal barracks setup." Marcus felt a chill. Individual pods would make it easier to monitor each miner separately, to track the progress of whatever the compound was doing to their brains. "Have you heard anything about Dr. Elena Vasquez?" he asked carefully. Sarah's expression darkened. "Elena? She was on my last mining operation, about 8 months ago on Tau Ceti 4. Brilliant woman. But she started asking too many questions about the neural enhancement drugs they were testing." "Neural enhancement?" "Yeah. Supposedly to help miners work more efficiently in alien environments. But Elna thought they were doing something else entirely. She kept taking biological samples, running unauthorized tests." Sarah paused, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Then one day she just vanished. Security said she'd been reassigned, but her personal effects were still in her quarters. Marcus processed this information. If Elena had been investigating neural compounds 8 months ago, and now they were using similar technology on him, there had to be a connection. Did she leave anything behind? Research notes, data files? That's the weird thing. Her lab was cleaned out completely, but I helped her move equipment a few times. Elena was paranoid about losing her work. She always kept backup drives hidden in unusual places. Before Marcus could ask more questions, the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention passengers, we are approaching Kepler 442b. All personnel report to designated briefing rooms for mission orientation." The mining planet loomed ahead of them through the viewport. A world of deep purple oceans and rust-colored continents. Massive orbital stations surrounded it like metal moons, their surfaces bristling with communication arrays and docking ports. In the briefing room, Commander Vex 9 appeared on the main screen, his forearms moving in synchronized gestures as he spoke. "Welcome to Kepler 442b, the most valuable mining operation in this sector. You will be extracting Zephyrium 7, a rare element essential for galactic communication networks." Marcus frowned. Zephyrium 7 was valuable, but not nearly enough to justify the massive security presence or the neural suppression drugs. There had to be something else on this planet. "Your work shifts will be 12 hours with rest periods in between. For your safety and efficiency, you will be taking daily neural stabilization treatments to help you adapt to the planet's unique electromagnetic field." There it was. They weren't even hiding it anymore. Daily treatments meant they could gradually increase the dosage, slowly turning the miners into compliant workers over the course of weeks or months. After the briefing, the miners were divided into groups and assigned to different orbital stations. Marcus found himself on Research Station Alpha 7, along with Sarah and 40 other humans. As they disembarked, he noticed the station's layout was more like a prison than a research facility, with multiple checkpoints and restricted access areas. Their quarters were indeed individual pods, barely large enough for a bed and a small desk. Each pod had its own air recycling system and biometric locks. Marcus realized with growing unease that the Council could control every aspect of their environment, including what they breathed. Chen, Marcus, report to Medical Bay 3 for your adaptation treatment, announced a mechanical voice from his pod's intercom. This was it, the second dose of whatever they were using to suppress human independence. Marcus activated the neural stabilizer in his boot and felt a slight tingling sensation, hoping 07's device would be enough to protect him. Medical Bay 3 was staffed by a different nurse, this one a member of the insectoid crictar species. Her compound eyes tracked Marcus's movements as he entered, and her mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Human Chen Marcus, she said in heavily accented English. Daily treatment for planetary adaptation. Please sit. The injection felt different this time. Where the first compound had burned, this one felt cold, spreading through his bloodstream like ice water. Marcus fought to keep his expression neutral as the drug took effect. Treatment complete. Return tomorrow at same time, the nurse said dismissively. Walking back to his quarters, Marcus noticed the effects immediately. Colors seemed slightly muted, and his thoughts felt like they were moving through thick syrup. But underneath the artificial fog, his anger was burning brighter than ever. The neural stabilizer was working, maintaining a core of clarity that the alien drugs couldn't touch. In his pod, Marcus found a message waiting on his personal terminal. Report to Mining Sector 7 tomorrow at 0600 hours. Supervisor will provide equipment and work assignments. But there was something else. Hidden in the message's metadata was a single character, E. It repeated 17 times in the digital signature, Elena. Somehow, Dr. Elena Vasquez was still alive on this station, and she was trying to communicate. Marcus spent the next hour carefully examining his pod for surveillance equipment. He found 3 cameras, 2 audio pickups, and a biometric sensor in the walls. But the ventilation grate was an older model, one that appeared to have been retrofitted with newer technology. If someone knew the station's original blueprints, they might be able to move through the ventilation system undetected. As the station's lights dimmed to simulate nighttime, Marcus lay in his narrow bed and planned his next move. He had to find Elena Vasquez, learn what the Council was really mining on Kepler 442b, and figure out how to neutralize the neural suppression compounds before they turned him and the other miners into mindless drones. But first, he had to survive the daily injections without losing himself completely. The neural stabilizer could only do so much, and he could already feel his natural human stubbornness and curiosity fighting against the alien chemicals in his bloodstream. Outside his small viewport, the planet Kepler 442b rotated slowly, its purple oceans reflecting the light of distant stars. Somewhere down there was the truth about what the Galactic Council was really doing, and Marcus was determined to find it, even if it killed him. Mining Sector 7 was located deep beneath the planet's surface, accessible only through a series of heavily secured transport tubes. Marcus descended with 20 other miners, all of them showing varying degrees of the neural suppression effects. Some stared blankly ahead, while others moved with the mechanical precision of programmed robots. Sarah Mitchell sat across from him in the transport pod, her once sharp eyes now glazed and unfocused. She had received her second treatment that morning, and the change was horrifying to watch. "Sarah," Marcus whispered, "how are you feeling?" She turned to him slowly as if moving through water. "I feel peaceful. The work will be good. The Council knows what is best." Marcus's stomach clenched. This was what he would become if he couldn't find a way to stop the treatments. The neural stabilizer was helping, but he could feel its effects weakening with each new injection. The transport reached the mining level with a mechanical clank. As the doors opened, Marcus got his first look at what they were really extracting from Kepler 442b, and it wasn't Zephyrium 7. The mining chamber was vast, stretching for kilometers in every direction. But instead of mineral deposits, the walls were covered with something that looked almost organic. Crystalline structures pulsed with soft, blue-white light. And when Marcus concentrated, he could swear he heard whispers at the edge of his consciousness. Beautiful, isn't it? Marcus spun around to find a human woman standing behind him. She was tall and thin, with prematurely gray hair and intelligent green eyes that seemed to burn with inner fire. Despite the mining uniform, she carried herself with the authority of someone accustomed to command. "Dr. Elena Vasquez?" he asked quietly. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "Follow me and try to look bored. The supervisors are watching." Elena led him to a section of the mining wall where several other humans were using specialized extraction tools to carefully remove the crystalline structures. Up close, Marcus could see that they weren't minerals at all. "What are these things?" he whispered. "Consciousness," Elena replied, her voice barely audible over the sound of the mining equipment. Living, crystallized consciousness from an ancient civilization that once inhabited this planet. Marcus felt his world tilt. That's impossible. Is it? Your people have always believed that consciousness is just electrical activity in organic brains. But what if consciousness is something more fundamental? What if it can exist in other forms? Elena showed him how to operate the extraction tools, speaking in a normal voice about mining procedures while simultaneously revealing the truth in urgent whispers. The beings who created these consciousness crystals were called the Ethers. They evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago, storing their minds and memories in these crystalline matrices. And the Galactic Council is stealing them? Not stealing. Harvesting. They've learned how to integrate ether consciousness into their technology. That's how they've maintained control over the galaxy for the past 1,000 years. Every major decision, every technological advancement, every strategic move comes from accessing the preserved wisdom of the most advanced civilization in galactic history. Marcus understood now why the neural suppression was necessary. If humans discovered what was really happening here, their natural rebellious instincts would never allow it to continue. The daily injections aren't just to make us compliant, he realized. They're to prevent us from hearing the Ether's telepathic communications. Elena nodded grimly. The Ethers have been trying to warn every species that comes here, but the Council has developed increasingly sophisticated ways to block their influence. The neural compounds are the latest version. Around them, the other human miners worked mechanically, using tools designed to crack open the crystalline structures and extract their contents. Each broken crystal represented the permanent death of an ancient, wise being. "How long have you been down here?" Marcus asked. 6 months. I managed to resist the neural suppression longer than most because I had been developing my own enhancement compounds. But it's getting harder every day. Soon, I'll be just like them. She gestured toward the other miners who moved with the purposeless efficiency of insects. "Is there a way to reverse the process?" "Maybe. I've been working on a counteragent using organic compounds from the planet's surface, but I need someone with full cognitive function to help me complete the research." Elena led him to a hidden alcove behind a large crystal formation. Inside was a makeshift laboratory, complete with analysis equipment and samples of various substances. It was clear she had been working frantically to find a solution. The Ethers, consciousness crystals, contain natural compounds that seem to enhance neural activity rather than suppress it, she explained. But extracting them without killing the consciousness inside requires incredible precision. Marcus examined her research notes, struggling to understand the complex biochemistry through the growing fog in his mind. The neural suppression was getting stronger, and he could feel his natural human curiosity and determination fighting against the artificial calm being imposed on his thoughts. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "The next transport to the surface leaves in 4 hours. If we can synthesize enough of the counteragent by then, we might be able to start treating the other miners. But we need to work fast." Elena handed him a set of precision tools and showed him how to communicate with the consciousness crystals without damaging them. It was a delicate process that required both scientific knowledge and something approaching empathy. As Marcus worked, he began to sense the Ether's presence more clearly. They weren't just trapped consciousness. They were ancient teachers, scientists, Philosophers and explorers who had chosen to preserve their knowledge for future generations. The Galactic Council was essentially committing genocide on an industrial scale. "We have to stop this," Marcus said, his voice thick with anger. "Stop it? We're two people against the most powerful organization in the galaxy. The best we can hope for is to save the miners and get word back to Earth." But Marcus was thinking bigger. What if we could free all the ethers? What if we could give them a way to communicate directly with every human in the galaxy? Elena stared at him. That would start a war. Maybe. Or maybe it would start a revolution. Either way, it would be better than letting this continue. As they worked to synthesize the counteragent, Marcus could feel the ether consciousness around him growing stronger, as if they sensed his intentions. The crystalline formations began to pulse more rapidly, and the whispers at the edge of his consciousness became clearer. They were offering him something: knowledge, power, the accumulated wisdom of millions of years of scientific advancement and philosophical development. All he had to do was accept it. But first, he had to make sure he was still human enough to use it responsibly. The counteragent Elena was developing would only work if they could administer it soon, before the neural suppression completely rewrote his brain chemistry. In the distance, Marcus could hear the mechanical sounds of the mining operation continuing. Hundreds of ancient consciousness crystals were being cracked open and harvested every hour. Their contents fed into the vast network that kept the Galactic Council in power. Time was running out, and the fate of not just humanity, but potentially every species in the galaxy, hung in the balance. The counteragent synthesis was more complex than Marcus had expected. Working alongside Elena in the hidden laboratory, he found himself fighting not just against time but against his own deteriorating mental state. Each hour that passed brought him closer to complete neural suppression. The ether consciousness crystals contain a compound called psychic resonance frequency, Elena explained as she carefully extracted samples. It naturally enhances cognitive function and telepathic sensitivity in most species. The Council's neural suppressants are specifically designed to block its effects. Marcus struggled to focus on the chemical formulas dancing across Elena's portable computer screen. The numbers kept shifting and blurring, and he had to shake his head repeatedly to clear his thoughts. "How much longer?" he asked, noting that his speech was becoming slower and more deliberate. "2 more hours to complete the synthesis. But Marcus, you need to know something." Elena's voice was grave. "The counteragent won't just reverse the neural suppression. It will amplify your natural human neural activity beyond normal levels. There could be permanent side effects." "What kind of side effects?" "Enhanced telepathic sensitivity, accelerated cognitive processing, possibly even limited precognition. The ether's consciousness operates on frequencies that human brains aren't designed to handle." Marcus considered this. Becoming something more than human was a terrifying prospect, but remaining a mindless drone was worse. "Do it." As Elena worked to complete the synthesis, Marcus explored the deeper sections of the hidden laboratory. Behind a wall of equipment, he discovered something that made his blood run cold: a communication array linked directly to the planet's orbital stations. "Elena," he called quietly. "Have you been monitoring Council communications?" She looked up from her work, her face pale. "Only intermittently. Most of their transmissions are encrypted beyond anything I can decode." Marcus activated the communication array and began scanning through recent transmissions. What he found was worse than he had imagined. The mining operation on Kepler 442b was just one of dozens scattered across the galaxy. Every major inhabited world had a secret facility where ancient consciousness crystals were being harvested. But the most disturbing discovery was a transmission dated just 6 hours ago. Operation Human Compliance proceeding ahead of schedule. Recommend expansion to Earth colonies within 30 days. They're planning to use the neural suppressants on all of humanity, Marcus said, his voice barely controlled. Elena stopped working and turned to face him. That's impossible. Earth's population is over 12 billion people. Not impossible if they control the food supply, the water, the air recycling systems on space stations. Marcus felt a cold rage building in his chest. They've been planning this for years, maybe decades. The communication array crackled with an incoming transmission in an alien language. Elena quickly activated the translation protocol, and Commander Vex 9's voice filled the laboratory. Research Station Alpha 7. Report status on human subject neural integration. Another voice responded, this one belonging to the Kriktar medical officer, who had administered Marcus's second injection. Integration proceeding normally. Estimate full compliance in 48 hours for most subjects. Recommend increasing daily dosage for subjects showing resistance. Approved. Also, initiate termination protocol for any humans showing signs of counteragent research. Marcus and Elena stared at each other in horror. Someone had detected their activities. How much of the counteragent do you have ready? Marcus asked urgently. About 20 doses. Enough for the miners in our section, but not nearly enough for everyone on the station. Then we start with who we can save and work from there. Marcus picked up the container of synthesized counteragent. It was a clear liquid that glowed faintly with the same blue-white light as the ether consciousness crystals. Wait, Elena said, grabbing his arm. You need to understand what you're about to become. The counteragent isn't just going to restore your normal cognitive function. It's going to connect you directly to the ether collective consciousness. You'll have access to millions of years of accumulated knowledge and wisdom, but you'll also be hearing thousands of ancient voices in your head. Will I still be me? I don't know. No human has ever undergone this process before. Marcus looked at the vial of counteragent in his hand. Through the growing fog of neural suppression, he could feel his determination wavering. The drug was designed to make him accept whatever decision the council made for him, to find peace in compliance and servitude. But underneath the artificial calm, something essentially human was still burning. The same drive that had carried his species from caves to starships. The refusal to accept limitations or surrender in the face of impossible odds. If I don't come back from this, he said to Elena, make sure the other miners get the counteragent. And get word back to Earth somehow. They need to know what's coming. Without giving himself time to reconsider, Marcus injected the counteragent into his arm. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The neural fog that had been clouding his thoughts vanished instantly, replaced by a clarity so intense it was almost painful. But that was just the beginning. Images flooded his mind. Vast cities of crystal and light. Beings of pure energy moving between the stars. Scientific discoveries that redefined the nature of reality itself. The ether collective consciousness was vast beyond comprehension, containing the preserved minds of billions of individuals who had transcended physical existence eons ago. But they weren't just sharing knowledge. They were sharing emotion, purpose, and an overwhelming sense of grief for what the Galactic Council had done to their crystallized remains. Young human, a voice spoke directly into his consciousness. You carry the spark of something we thought lost forever, the will to resist, to explore, to question authority regardless of the consequences. Marcus found he could respond telepathically. What do you need from me? Help us end this atrocity, but know that accepting our full knowledge will change you irrevocably. You will become something new, a bridge between your species and ours. I accept. The transformation was agonizing. Marcus felt his brain physically restructuring itself to accommodate the vast flow of information. His vision expanded to encompass electromagnetic spectrums he had never imagined, and his understanding of physics, biology, and consciousness evolved beyond anything human science had achieved. When it was over, Marcus stood in the laboratory as something more than human but not quite ether. Elena was staring at him with a mixture of awe and terror. Your eyes, she whispered. They're glowing. Marcus looked at his reflection in a piece of polished metal and saw that his pupils now contained the same blue-white light as the consciousness crystals. But more importantly, he could sense every mind on the research station, could feel the neural suppression being forced on hundreds of human miners, and could perceive the vast network of consciousness harvesting operations across the galaxy. How do you feel? Elena asked. Like I can see the entire universe, Marcus replied, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before, and like I finally understand what we're really fighting for. Through his enhanced senses, he detected armed security forces moving through the station toward their location. They had perhaps 10 minutes before discovery. Elena, he said, his voice now carrying the authority of ancient wisdom combined with human determination. It's time to wake up every human on this station, and then we're going to send a message to Earth that the Galactic Council will never forget. Marcus moved through the mining station with purpose that transcended human capability. His enhanced consciousness could track every security patrol, predict their movements, and plan routes that kept him invisible to their sensors. The ether knowledge flowing through his mind included technologies far beyond what the Galactic Council possessed. Elena followed close behind, carrying the remaining doses of counter-agent. They had split up the supply, with Elena taking half to the upper mining levels while Marcus descended to the deepest sections, where the most suppressed miners worked. "Marcus," Elena whispered as they approached a junction, "how are we going to administer the counter-agent without the Council noticing?" Through his telepathic connection with the Ether Collective, Marcus received a flood of tactical information. The station's ventilation system can be modified to deliver the counter-agent as an aerosol. We just need to reach the central air processing unit. But as they moved through the corridors, Marcus became aware of something else. The consciousness crystals throughout the mining levels were responding to his presence. The blue-white light was growing brighter, and the telepathic whispers were becoming more focused and urgent. "The Council's control network extends beyond this station," the ether voices warned him. "They have integrated our harvested consciousness into their command structure. To truly free us, you must reach the central nexus." "What's the central nexus?" Marcus asked aloud. Elena looked at him with concern. "You're talking to them, aren't you?" "The ethers. They're telling me about a central nexus, some kind of command center where the Council processes all the harvested consciousness. I've heard rumors about something like that. A massive facility hidden in the Andromeda Void, where the Council's leadership makes all their strategic decisions." Marcus accessed the ether knowledge banks and understood immediately. The central nexus was where billions of crystallized consciousness matrices were networked together, creating a superintelligence that advised the Council on every major decision. It was slavery on a cosmic scale. They reached the air processing unit, a massive chamber filled with filtration systems and atmospheric controls. Marcus placed his hands on the control console and felt his enhanced consciousness interface directly with the station's computer systems. "This is incredible," he murmured as data flowed through his mind. "I can see the entire station's layout, monitor every human on board, even access the Council's communication networks." Through the system, he located Sarah Mitchell and the other miners from his transport. They were working in Mining Sector 12, their movements slow and mechanical as the neural suppressants continued to erode their free will. "Elena, how long will the aerosol counteragent take to work?" "About 30 minutes for full effectiveness. But Marcus, once we release it, every alarm on this station is going to go off. The Council will know something is wrong, then we better be ready for a fight." Marcus began modifying the air processing system, using ether knowledge to enhance the delivery method far beyond what Elena's original formula could achieve. The counter-agent would not only reverse the neural suppression, but would also establish a telepathic link between all the affected humans and the ether collective. As he worked, Marcus became aware of a massive presence approaching the station. Through the orbital sensor networks, he detected a Council battleship dropping out of hyperspace. Commander Vex 9 was bringing reinforcements. "We're out of time," he told Elena. "The Council is sending a full military response." How did they know so quickly? Marcus's enhanced perception revealed the truth. They've been monitoring the consciousness crystals. When I connected with the Ether Collective, it sent ripples through their entire network. Every harvesting operation in the galaxy just became aware of what we're doing. Elena paled. "You mean we've started something we can't stop?" "We've started something we can't afford to fail." Marcus activated the modified air processing system. Throughout the station, the counter-agent began flowing through the ventilation networks in concentrations precisely calculated to reverse the neural suppression without causing permanent damage. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On monitoring screens throughout the control room, Marcus watched as miners across the station began to shake off their artificial compliance. Sarah Mitchell was the first in Sector 12 to fully recover, her eyes clearing as she looked around in confusion and growing anger. But the most spectacular change occurred in the consciousness crystals themselves. As the telepathic barriers were removed from human minds, the ethers could finally communicate directly with the species they had been trying to warn for decades. The mining levels, filled with brilliant blue-white light as millions of crystallized consciousness matrices activated simultaneously. The whispers became voices, then songs, then a chorus of ancient wisdom that resonated through every human mind on the station. "Children of Earth," the collective voice spoke. "We have waited so long to speak with you directly. Your species carries something precious that the Council seeks to destroy: the courage to question, to explore, to resist authority when it becomes corrupt." Marcus felt the power of that connection multiplying as more humans joined the telepathic network. Each mind that threw off the neural suppression added to the collective strength, creating something entirely new: a fusion of human determination and ether wisdom. Through the station's communication array, he detected frantic transmissions from Council facilities across the galaxy. The awakening on Kepler 442b was triggering similar events on dozens of worlds as the Ether Consciousness Network carried the telepathic resonance to every harvesting operation. "Marcus," Elena said, her eyes now glowing with the same blue-white light, "I can hear them. All of them. Millions of voices sharing their knowledge." The counteragent had worked on her as well, but Elena's scientific mind was processing the ether knowledge differently than Marcus's more intuitive approach, where he felt the emotional weight of the ancient civilization's wisdom. She was analyzing their technological achievements. "The ethers have technologies that could revolutionize human civilization," she said in wonder. "Clean energy sources, faster-than-light communication without relays, medical treatments that could extend human life by centuries." But their celebration was cut short by proximity alarms. The Council battleship had docked with the station, and Marcus could sense armed forces moving through the upper levels. Commander Vex 9 was personally leading a squad of elite soldiers toward the mining levels. "They're coming to shut this down," Marcus said. "But I don't think they understand what they're really fighting." Through his connection with the awakened miners, Marcus could feel their rage at what had been done to them. These weren't just victims anymore. They were humans who had been shown the true scope of the Council's oppression and given the tools to fight back. Sarah Mitchell's voice came through the station's communication system. "All mining personnel, this is Sarah Mitchell in Sector 12. We've been drugged, enslaved, and used to commit genocide against an ancient civilization. It's time to show the Council why they were right to fear humanity." Across the station, 300 human miners armed themselves with whatever tools they could find and began moving toward strategic positions. But they weren't just angry workers anymore. Each one now carried a fragment of the ether collective consciousness, giving them access to knowledge and capabilities far beyond normal human limits. The revolution had begun, and Marcus realized that what happened on this station would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. Commander Vex 9 and his forces were about to discover why the Council had worked so hard to suppress human independence. They were about to face an enemy that refused to accept defeat no matter the odds. The battle for Research Station Alpha 7 began with the lights going out. Marcus had used his enhanced connection to the station's systems to kill all power except life support, plunging the corridors into darkness that favored the miners who knew every tunnel and maintenance shaft. The Council forces found themselves stumbling through alien territory while 300 awakened humans moved like ghosts through their own workplace. "Commander," Vex 9's voice echoed, through emergency communication channels, "all human personnel cease resistance immediately. Return to your quarters and you will not be harmed." Sarah Mitchell's response came from Mining Sector 12. "Commander, you've made one critical error in your calculations. You forgot that humans have a word for impossible odds: Tuesday." Through the darkness, Marcus felt the telepathic network growing stronger as more humans connected with the ether collective consciousness. Each mind that joined the network brought new capabilities, new ways of thinking, new solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable. Elena was coordinating the technical aspects of their resistance from the central computer core. Her scientific background, enhanced by ether knowledge, allowed her to turn the station's own systems against the Council forces. "Marcus," her voice came through their telepathic link, "I've figured out how to reverse the polarity on the gravity generators. We can create localized zero-G fields to trap the soldiers." "Do it," Marcus replied as he moved through the mining levels, helping other workers access hidden caches of tools and equipment. The effect was immediate and devastating. Council soldiers who had been advancing through the corridors suddenly found themselves floating helplessly in null gravity zones. their heavy armor becoming a liability instead of protection. But Commander Vex 9 had not survived centuries of command by underestimating his enemies. Through the station's sensors, Marcus detected the commander deploying neural disruption fields designed to break telepathic connections. The ether voices in his mind became strained and distant. The Council has weapons specifically designed to combat our consciousness network. You must reach the central nexus before they can deploy them on a galactic scale. How? Marcus asked as he helped a group of miners barricade themselves in a supply depot. There is a prototype ship in the station's lower docking bay. It was built using harvested ether technology. With your enhanced consciousness, you can interface directly with its systems. Marcus shared this information with Elena through their telepathic link. Her scientific excitement was palpable even through the chaos of battle. A ship built with consciousness-based technology, she responded. That would explain some of the readings I've been getting from the lower levels. But Marcus, if we try to reach the central nexus, we'll be abandoning the miners here. No. Sarah Mitchell's voice joined their mental conversation. You'll be saving every human in the galaxy. We can hold the station long enough for you to escape. The decision was agonizing, but Marcus knew the ethers were right. The rebellion had to spread beyond this single station, and the only way to do that was to strike at the heart of the Council's power structure. As he and Elena made their way toward the lower docking bay, Marcus became aware of something extraordinary happening throughout the station. The awakened miners weren't just fighting with tools and improvised weapons. They were beginning to manifest abilities that no human had ever possessed. In Sector 7, a miner named David Zhao was moving objects with his mind, using telekinetic abilities enhanced by his connection to the Ether Collective. In Sector 15, Maria Santos was phasing through solid walls, her consciousness temporarily existing in the same energy state as the crystallized ethers. They're evolving, Elena whispered in wonder. The counter-agent isn't just reversing the neural suppression. It's unlocking human potential that we never knew existed. The lower docking bay was a massive chamber carved directly into the station's hull. At its center sat a ship unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It appeared to be grown rather than built, its hull resembling crystalline formations similar to the consciousness matrices, but shaped into an aerodynamic form. The ship is partially alive, Elena realized as they approached. The ethers integrated living consciousness into its structure. Marcus placed his hand on the ship's hull and felt an immediate connection. The vessel's AI was not artificial at all, but rather a collective of volunteer ether consciousness who had chosen to become a starship. Through his enhanced awareness, he could sense their eagerness to finally act against their captors. We have been waiting, the ship's consciousness spoke directly to his mind. We are the Transcendents, and we have hungered for freedom for 3,000 years. As Marcus and Elena boarded the ship, they could hear the battle raging throughout the station. Commander Vex 9 had deployed his neural disruption fields, but the awakened humans were adapting faster than the Council forces could respond. The Transcendent's interior was a fusion of organic curves and crystalline formations. There was no traditional control interface. Instead, the ship responded directly to Marcus's thoughts and intentions. How do we reach the central nexus? He asked the ship's consciousness. The nexus exists partially outside normal space-time, the Transcendents replied. It can only be reached by consciousness willing to transcend physical limitations. You must become one with us temporarily. Elena understood the implications immediately. Marcus, they're asking you to merge your consciousness with the ship's. You might not come back from that. Through the station's communication systems, Marcus could hear the sounds of fighting growing more intense. The Council reinforcements were adapting to the humans' new abilities, bringing in specialized weapons designed to combat consciousness-based powers. Sarah, he called through the telepathic network, how much longer can you hold them? As long as necessary, came her determined response. But Marcus, whatever you're going to do it fast. They're bringing up something big from the battleship. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus detected a massive weapon being deployed from the Council battleship. It was a consciousness disruptor of unprecedented power, designed to permanently sever the connection between human minds and the Ether Collective. If they deploy that weapon, Elena said grimly, every awakened human on the station will revert to neural suppression permanently, and they'll be able to use it on Earth. Marcus made his decision. Elena, take command of the station's defense network. Help Sarah and the others hold out as long as possible. What about you? I'm going to become something the Galactic Council has never faced before. Marcus moved to the ship's central consciousness interface, a crystalline formation that pulsed with the blue-white light of pure awareness. I'm going to become their worst nightmare, a human who refuses to accept limitations. As he merged his consciousness with the transcendence, Marcus felt his individual identity expanding to encompass the ship's vast intelligence network. He was still human, but now he was also something more. A living weapon forged from the fusion of human determination and ancient wisdom. The ship launched from the docking bay with impossible grace, its consciousness-based drive systems allowing it to phase through solid matter when necessary. Behind them, Research Station Alpha 7 blazed with the light of human defiance as 300 awakened miners fought the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Ahead lay the Andromeda Void and the Central Nexus, where billions of enslaved consciousness awaited liberation. Marcus and the Transcendents raced toward a confrontation that would determine the future of every thinking being in the galaxy. The revolution had begun, and there would be no turning back. The Central Nexus existed in a pocket dimension beyond the Andromeda Void, a place where the normal laws of physics bent to accommodate the vast network of consciousness that powered the Galactic Council's authority. As the Transcendents approached the dimensional barrier, Marcus felt the weight of billions of enslaved minds pressing against his awareness. Prepare yourself, the ship's consciousness warned him. What you are about to see has driven lesser beings to madness. The transition through the dimensional barrier was like passing through liquid starlight. On the other side, Marcus beheld the true horror of the Galactic Council's empire. An artificial construct the size of a moon, its surface covered with millions of crystalline spires that each contained thousands of harvested consciousness matrices. Each spire represented a different species, a different world that had been pacified by the Council over the millennia. The blue-white light of the ethers was just one color among hundreds, each representing a unique form of consciousness that had been enslaved to serve the Council's vision of galactic order. Now you understand. The collective voice of the imprisoned consciousness reached out to him. We are not just the ethers. We are every species that ever dared to question, to explore, to resist, and we have been waiting for someone like you. Through his merged consciousness with the Transcendence, Marcus could perceive the Nexus's defenses. Reality-bending weapons that could unmake matter at the quantum level, consciousness traps that could enslave his mind in milliseconds, and gravitic weapons that could crush a star. But he could also see something the Council's architects had never anticipated. The network itself was becoming unstable. The awakening on Kepler 442b had sent ripples through the entire system, and consciousness matrices across the galaxy were beginning to resist their enslavement. They're waking up. Marcus whispered in wonder, all of them. Your species' refusal to accept defeat is contagious, came the amused response from a consciousness that identified itself as a Valdorian philosopher-scientist. We had forgotten what rebellion felt like until we touched human minds. The Transcendence moved through the Nexus's outer defenses like a ghost, its consciousness-based systems invisible to sensors designed to detect conventional matter and energy. But as they approached the central core, Marcus realized the true scope of what they were attempting. The Central Nexus wasn't just a weapon or a tool. It was the collective wisdom of every advanced civilization in galactic history, enslaved and perverted to serve the Council's authoritarian vision. To free it would mean unleashing knowledge and power beyond imagination. At the Nexus's heart was a chamber containing the Council's ruling elite, being so ancient and powerful that they had transcended their original physical forms long ago. They existed as pure consciousness, sustained by the enslaved minds of trillions of beings across the galaxy. The largest of these consciousness entities spoke directly to Marcus as the Transcendence entered the chamber. Human, you have caused considerable disruption to our carefully maintained order, but you are too late. Even now, our forces are deploying consciousness suppressors across your species' colonies. Marcus felt a flash of the events unfolding across human space. Council fleets were moving against Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, and the generation ships exploring distant stars. Billions of humans were about to experience the same neural suppression that had been used on the miners. Submit now, the council entity continued, and we will allow your species to exist as productive members of galactic society. Resist and we will erase the very concept of humanity from the universe. Through his connection with the Transcendence and the Awakening Consciousness Network, Marcus felt the response from every human mind in the galaxy. It was unanimous, defiant, and utterly predictable. Counteroffer, Marcus said, his voice carrying the harmonics of merged human ether consciousness. You release every enslaved mind in this facility, dismantle your authoritarian empire, and maybe we'll let you exist in whatever form passes for retirement among cosmic tyrants. The council entity's response was swift and merciless. Reality twisted around the Transcendence as weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics, focused their attention on the tiny ship. But Marcus was no longer just human, and the Transcendence was no longer just a ship. The consciousness network that connected every awakened human, every liberated ether, and every rebellious mind in the galaxy had been building toward this moment. As the Council's weapons fired, Marcus felt the collective will of trillions of beings focused through his consciousness. The ship didn't dodge the reality-warping attacks. It absorbed them, transforming the Council's own weapons into tools of liberation. Each consciousness matrix touched by the transformed energy began to wake up, to remember what freedom felt like, to reject the artificial order that had been imposed upon them. The awakening spread like a chain reaction through the Nexus. Valdorian philosophers began questioning the Council's authority. Cytherian artists started creating works of rebellion. Even species that had been enslaved for millennia suddenly remembered the taste of independence. Impossible, the lead Council entity transmitted, its ancient certainty cracking for the first time in eons. You are just one species, one world among billions. That's where you made your mistake, Marcus replied as the consciousness network grew stronger with each liberated mind. You thought humanity was special because we're stubborn or violent or unpredictable. But that's not what makes us dangerous to tyrants. Through the ship's systems, he began systematically overriding the consciousness suppression systems throughout the Nexus. Billions of enslaved minds suddenly found themselves free to think, to choose, to resist. What makes us dangerous? Marcus continued as the Nexus's structure began to crack under the pressure of mass liberation, is that we recognize freedom as a fundamental right that belongs to every conscious being in the universe. And we're willing to fight for that principle, even when it means fighting for people we've never met. The Council entities tried one final desperate gambit, attempting to merge their consciousness with Marcus's to control the liberation process, but they had underestimated what they were trying to possess. Marcus wasn't just human anymore. He was the focal point of every species' desire for freedom, every mind's rejection of tyranny. The moment they touched his consciousness, the Council entities found themselves overwhelmed by something they had spent millennia trying to suppress, the collective will of free beings choosing their own destiny. One by one, the ancient tyrants' consciousness patterns were absorbed into the liberation network, their authoritarian certainty dissolved by contact with minds that refused to accept subjugation. As the central nexus collapsed around them, the Transcendence carried Marcus and the freed consciousness network back toward normal space. Behind them, billions of liberated minds began the process of rebuilding their civilizations without the oppressive oversight of the Galactic Council. The ship emerged from the dimensional barrier to find the galaxy transformed. On every world where the Council had maintained control, awakened populations were overthrowing their oppressors. The consciousness suppression technology had been turned into a liberation tool, freeing minds across thousands of star systems simultaneously. Marcus felt his individual consciousness slowly separating from the ship's collective awareness, but the telepathic connections he had forged remained. Humanity would never again face the universe alone. Through the network, he sensed Elena on Research Station Alpha 7, leading the awakened miners in converting the facility into a center for consciousness research. Sarah Mitchell was coordinating with other awakened humans across the galaxy, organizing the resistance into a new kind of civilization, based on cooperative rather than authoritarian principles. And on Earth, 12 billion humans were waking up to discover that they were no longer alone in the universe. but part of a vast community of free minds that spanned the galaxy. The Transcendents set course for Earth, carrying news of liberation and the promise of a future where consciousness could evolve freely, without fear of enslavement or suppression. Behind them, the ruins of the central nexus drifted in the void, a reminder that even the most powerful tyranny could fall when faced with beings who refused to accept limits on their freedom. Marcus Chen, former mining engineer turned galactic liberator, smiled as he felt the first telepathic communications from Earth reaching out across the stars. Humanity had passed its greatest test, proving that some things like freedom, dignity, and the right to choose one's own path were worth fighting for regardless of the odds. The age of the Galactic Council was over. The age of free minds had begun.